The key turned in the lock with a soft click, a sound that usually brought a sense of peace. Not tonight. Tonight, it felt like the prelude to a storm. I stepped into our home, the same home we'd built together, the same home that now felt alien, tainted. The scent of her perfume, a floral blend I used to find intoxicating, hung in the air, a mocking reminder of the life we'd supposedly shared. "Honey, is that you?" Her voice, light and lilting, floated from the kitchen. It was the same voice that had whispered sweet nothings in my ear, the same voice that had vowed forever, the same voice that now, I knew, had been a carefully crafted facade. I walked into the kitchen and there she was, my wife, Sarah. She stood at the counter, a picture of domesticity, stirring something in a bowl. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She wore a simple t-shirt and yoga pants, an outfit I'd always found comfortable, familiar. She turned, a bright smile illuminating her face. "Hey, how was work?" she asked, as if everything was perfectly normal. "It was work," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. I forced a smile, the muscles in my face protesting the artificial movement. I couldn't let her see, not yet. I needed her to believe that everything was as it always had been. "I'm going to shower and change, then I'll be out to help with dinner." "Sounds good." She turned back to the bowl, humming a tuneless melody. I watched her for a moment, the ease with which she moved, the utter lack of guilt that seemed to emanate from her. It was a performance of epic proportions. Upstairs, I stripped off my clothes, the days were feeling heavy, almost repulsive. I entered the shower, the hot water beating against my skin, trying to wash away the feeling of betrayal that had become a constant companion. I felt like an imposter in my own skin, in my own life. I'd found it a few days ago, a crumpled receipt tucked deep in the pocket of her favorite coat, a coat I'd bought her last Christmas. It wasn't just any receipt. It was from a small, boutique hotel, the kind that caters to discreet rendezvous. The name on the receipt, scrawled in a barely legible hand, was not mine. The date, however, was a recent one, a day she'd told me she'd spent at a yoga retreat. The sick feeling in the pit of my stomach had not subsided since. The evidence was damning, yet, I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I played the long game, gathering my thoughts, making a plan. This wasn't just about her infidelity, it was about the lies, the deception, the shattering of everything we'd built. After showering, I dressed in my most comfortable clothes, the same sweatpants and old t-shirt I wore on casual weekends. I made my way back downstairs, the plan solidifying with each step. I entered the kitchen to find she'd set the table. She'd even placed a small vase with a single rose in the center, a gesture I would have once found endearing. "You smell good," she said, her smile still in place, as I sat at the table. It was the same smile I'd seen every morning for the past 8 years, a smile I now knew was a weapon, wielded with practiced precision. I looked at her, taking a deep breath, the calm before the storm. "Dinner smells great, honey. But before we eat, I need to grab something from the safe." Her face didn't flicker. "Sure, go ahead." She turned to tend to the pot on the stove, oblivious to the seismic shift that was about to occur. I walked to the den, my heart hammering against my ribs. The safe was hidden behind a framed picture of us, a photo taken on our honeymoon. I reached for the picture, my fingers tracing the edges, a lump forming in my throat. It was a picture of a time when we were happy, a time when I believed in the forever we promised. With a sharp pull, I removed the photo, revealing the safe. I spun the dial, the numbers a familiar sequence, a code to unlock something precious, something I now realized had been a lie. The door clicked open, and I reached inside, pulling out a small, velvet box. I walked back into the kitchen, the box clutched tightly in my hand. Sarah was stirring the pot, her back to me, the picture of innocence. I cleared my throat, and she turned, a question in her eyes. "What's that?" she asked, her voice casual, too casual. I held out the box, my gaze locked on her. "This," she frowned, taking the box from my hand. "What is it? Did you buy me a new necklace?" She opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, were several items. There was the receipt from the boutique hotel, pressed flat and laminated. There was a small, silver charm, a heart with an initial engraved on it that was not hers or mine. There was a folded picture, taken on a cell phone, of her kissing another man, a man who wasn't me. The color drained from her face. Her eyes widened, her hand trembled, the box almost slipping from her grasp. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She stared at the contents of the box, her face a mask of horror and disbelief. I think this pretty much explains itself, I said, my voice calm, but with an edge of steel. I just wanted to make sure you knew that I know. She finally managed a small, choked sound. I don't, she stammered. Don't what? Don't know what to say. Don't know how to explain it away. You know, the acting, it was good. Really good. I was almost convinced you were still the woman I married. Almost. My voice was steady, devoid of any emotion, a monotone that only emphasized the gravity of the situation. She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. Please, let me explain. Explain what? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. Explain how you were able to lie to my face, day after day. Explain the cheap hotel. Explain that man. I gestured towards the photo, a cruel smile playing on my lips. It's not what you think, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Oh, I think it is, Sarah. I think I finally see you for who you are. I leaned against the kitchen counter, folding my arms, my eyes never leaving hers. I spent days watching you, pretending I knew nothing. It wasn't fun. It was like watching someone I used to love slowly disappear. She tried to reach for me, her hand outstretched, but I stepped back, creating a gap between us. Don't touch me. She stared at me, her face a landscape of devastation. The tears were flowing freely now, but I felt nothing. There was no anger, no sadness, just a deep, hollow ache, the emptiness that comes with losing something you thought was real. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice trembling. Do, I repeated, arching an eyebrow. I picked up the velvet box and closed it, a finality in the simple act. I'm going to have dinner, then I'm going to go to bed. You, on the other hand, are going to pack your things and leave. You can take the car, the clothes, the jewelry. Just leave. Her eyes widened again, as if I'd spoken an unimaginable truth. Leave, but where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem, I said, my voice flat. You made your bed, Sarah. Now, you can lie in it, somewhere else. I turned, moving towards the dining room table and took a seat. I picked up my fork and began to eat. She stood there, frozen in place, as I ate my dinner. I chewed each bite methodically, ignoring her silent weeping. When I finished, I took my dishes to the sink and rinsed them. She was still there, standing where I'd left her, the velvet box still clutched in her hands. I went upstairs, got a large duffel bag from the closet and brought it back down. I tossed it at her feet. I'll give you an hour, I said, my voice hard. Then I'm changing the locks. Don't worry about the rest of your things. I'll be sure to send them somewhere. I turned and walked into the living room, sat on the sofa, and picked up a book. I heard her moving around upstairs, the sound of drawers opening and closing, the shuffle of clothes. I didn't look up, didn't acknowledge her existence. When the hour was up, I heard the front door close with a soft thud. I got up and walked to the door. I opened it and saw her car, parked halfway down the driveway, the tail lights still illuminated, mocking me. I walked back inside, went to the small drawer beside the door, and pulled out a small screwdriver and a new lock set. I went to the front door and began to remove the old one. As I tightened the new lock in place, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was something akin to peace. I went back into the living room, picked up my book, and began to read. The house was quiet, eerily quiet, but finally, it was mine. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. The storm had passed, the wreckage was there, but I was still standing. I would rebuild, not with her, but without her. And that, I realized, was all that mattered.